We're going to be arriving in the Shetland Islands in a port called Lerwick. Now, a big ship like this doesn't have the ability, as Diane mentioned, to dock alongside in Lerwick, so we have to use smaller boats to take you ashore. You will hear them referred to as tender boats. The last tender back from the shore is at 4:30 p.m. You must at least be on that last tender. Now, what happens if all 2,000 of you turn up for that last tender? You think we'd panic, don't you? But we won't. We have boxing gloves and we hand them out to you all. And the last 100 people standing get to come back. And the rest of you become residents of the Shetland Islands for the winter. Good luck.
We expect to be anchor of the harbour of Lerwick shortly after 7 o'clock. There is no berth for us to go alongside as we are too big. In fact, it's quite a tight entrance to the bay where we will drop the anchor. Proceed slowly inside the bay, turn the ship and drop the anchor. So we'll be all ready for you just after 7 o'clock to take a short, on a very short tender run, is less than about a quarter of a mile, so to the center of the harbour. For an overcast day with also possibility of rain and temperature in about 12 centigrade or 54 Fahrenheit.
Good morning everyone, my name is Arnold, I'm your tour guide for the morning. If you do at any stage get close to Shetland ponies, please remember they have two ends. One bites, the other kicks. So do not feed them, as this will encourage them to nip you. Okay? It's called Church Road. You'll see a number of lanes here on your right. There's one here called Law Lane on the right, formerly called the Sheriff's Close, or Close. The Sheriff was the judge, and still is in Scotland. The judge, as in the Crown Courts in England, we have sheriffs in Scotland. One of the churches here on the left has been converted into the county library. It was formerly the St Bringan's Church, one of the free churches of Scotland, United Free Churches. And on our left again, this was the former library, which is known as the Old Library Centre. The building on our right here is Lerwick Town Hall. It was built in 1881 1881 I should say, and it has some beautiful stained glass windows, as you can see in the upper floor, which depict the history of Shetland from Viking times and on. The Vikings landed in Shetland in 890 AD. And the column on your right is the war memorial for 2 world wars to commemorate the dead of 2 world wars. And beyond that, the building to your right is the Sheriff Courthouse and offices of the Crown Prosecution Service, and beyond the area headquarters for the police service in Shetland, the Northern Constabulary. As we move down here through these streets here, you'll notice they've named St Olaf Street, King Eric Street, and then on to King Harold Street, all named after Viking kings. The park to your right is used as the centre for our Uphelliar festival. This is a Viking fire festival commemorating the end of the winter, the start of the spring, and with our Viking heritage, a long ship is paraded through the streets accompanied by some 900 geysers, and eventually it culminates in the burning of the long ship service in Shetland. The large bay to your left, which you just came in some hour or two ago, is called Wick Bay. The name Wick is Viking, it means a broad or square-shaped bay, and beyond you'll see the lighthouse of Bressay, which was built in 1858 by the Stevenson family. Robert Louis Stevenson, the author's father and grandfather, were civil engineers who came to Shetland, and you'll see the Norwegian flag flying from a flagpole here on your right. We have fairly strong links with Norway, both from our past, from our heritage left by the Viking language, the Part of the Shetland dialect consists of Nordic words, and our place names are in the main Viking. Now climbing out of Lerwick, and shortly you will see a pillar on your right. There are a number of pillars throughout Shetland. We call them standing stones, but this one isn't historic. It was, well, it's historic to a certain degree in that it was put there in the 1980s when this road was finished and constructed properly. The old road is up the top there. You might be able to see part of it. It's one of the highest roads in Shetland at one time. Now if you glance to your left here as we come down the hill, you'll see an assortment of Shetland ponies. These are still bred in the islands and were in the 1850s used in the coal mines in Britain for a number of years. They're on both sides of the road, in fact. We're now turning right and leaving the small village of Gulberwick, another Viking name on our left with the church in the centre, a large white bay. The tanker lying off the shore there is waiting to go to fields to the west of Shetland, to Foynhaven, to collect oil and gas. We're now moving towards the village of Scalloway. And the sun always shines in Scalloway, as you can see. This is where I live. And we're going to give you an opportunity to alight from the bus if you so wish to take a few photographs. It's an ideal opportunity since the sun is shining. And you'll see in the foreground the boating marina. We have two. You'll see the old castle of Scalloway, which was built in the year 1600. Scalloway Castle itself was the sheriff's residence. Patrick Stewart was the Earl of Orkney and the Lord of Shetland. He was the overlord representing the Queen at that time, Mary Queen of Scots. And at that time there was a number of executions that took place following trials in the castle itself. And as you go into the castle, you'll have an opportunity to go into Scalloway Castle today. You'll see the great hall of the castle where some of these trials took place. Many of the women that were involved were accused of witchcraft, and those that weren't drowned were burnt at the stake, and that took place on the hill overlooking Scalloway here, on the Gallow Hill. In the distance on your left you can see the hills which run north-south. More or less all the hills in Shetland are formed from the geological north-south glacial period, when some 10 million years ago, we had the Ice Age, etc., and that carved out our long vaux and valleys.
Oh, it's special things. And when we go back to the pier, to any of those little lakes, past between the houses,
So, hope you've enjoyed your brief sojourn in the village of Scalloway. There's mention being made of the beauty of the village and the contrasting greyness of the buildings. That is due to the local stone, which we have plentiful supplies of. Some of the stone in the castle, in fact, came from Orkney, the sandstone around the windows and doors, etc. That came from the island of Ede in Orkney. But some of our buildings are more colourful now with modern planning, and if you look to your right now, you'll see a new scheme which is to the right, and you'll see the various colours which have been introduced there. If and when you go to the Faroe Islands, you will see a number of buildings very similar to that with bright reds and blues, etc. In the main, they're timber buildings, these ones, yeah. So we move out of Scalloway and we move up the Tingle Valley, or north the Tingle Valley now. The Scalloway School is on our left here. It was extended in 1960 and again in the 1980s. So it provides a comprehensive education up to 15 and 16-year-olds, and then they can have a higher education if they go into Lerwick to the Anderson High School. We then have two freshwater lochs, lakes, loch being the Scottish name, and the first one is called Astalloch, again a Viking name. It's where they do sailing. It all belongs to some. I've been asked the question whether there are any wild ponies, but no, they're mainly the property of some rearer who wants to produce them for sale usually, although they don't fetch all that high prices. Depends on the colours. Certain colours do fetch high prices. You will see a number of Shetland ponies grazing again. There is a stud farm here. Nice brown colours. That's the ones that fetch the high prices. It's the light brown ones. There's a few down over the edge here on the left hand side. He is in fact buried in this churchyard. He died in the early 1600s, and if you look to your left you'll see a round mound, a round burial vault with an open door. That was the Mitchell family vault, but Andrew Crawford's tombstone is still in that vault being preserved. Sustenance, known as subsistence farming. Shetland's crofting or farming was very much under the control of the lairds who owned the land and who exacted fairly heavy demands from the tenants. The building on our left is known as Sandwater House. Next to the loch here, Sandwater Loch, which is very good for trout fishing. And otters follow the streams all the way from here to the sea. This particular building was a coaching inn at one time, which was a halfway house between Lerwick and Hillswick, which is one of the villages far north and west in the mainland of Shetland. It was a rest where people could rest both themselves and their ponies, and they could stay overnight. And they used to have livestock sales here in the parks in the area. This is about as far away as you can get from the sea, this particular area. It's about 3 miles from the sea, and that's about as far away as you will get from the sea in Shetland. You're very seldom out of sight of either the North Sea or the Atlantic Ocean. So the hatchery is on your left. This old mill here is now a centre for art. It's an art gallery, and there's a small... It's a very good example of a voe. I mentioned to you that a voe or a vogue, this is the Nordic name, is a long, narrow inlet of water, and here we have it on our right. This is Weesdale Voe. Right, that's the west of Shetland. The island with the peaks I mentioned is approximately 26 miles from the nearest port. The other road, Scalloway, which we've been in this morning, is to our right here. That's known as the North Road. We came out the South Road, and we're now returning to Lerwick by veering left here, climbing the hill. The possibility of extracting more wind power is still in discussion, but it could well be that Shetland could become a power station for mainland Britain. It's a very controversial subject, and one which is causing some concern, because the landscape could be blotted with windmills or air generators. I hope that you've enjoyed your short visit to Shetland. We've only seen a very small part of the islands, bearing in mind that there are over 100 islands. We're just on one at the moment, so maybe this has whetted your appetite to come back in the future. I do hope that you've enjoyed it, and that perhaps
this is the captain speaking from the bridge. Well, I trust you enjoy your stay here in Lerwick, very characteristic city up here, and well, weather-wise you have done an excellent job. It was sunny this morning and they haven't seen the sun for a long time up here. That's what the pilot was telling me. So, well, it was a good day overall. As for us, the stay here at anchor has been a bit challenging, as this is pretty shallow water all around. In fact, I've spent most of the afternoon up here to make sure we were nice and safe, and it's now time to depart. We're just about to recover one of the tenders, the last of our tenders, secure the pontoon, and then I have to wait for the local pilot to come on board. So it's gonna be another 10 minutes or so, at least that's what they told me. So as soon as he's on board, then we will proceed out of the bay here, disembark the pilot, and then start to set a southerly course initially, as we have to go around the southern tip of the island here. As soon as we are clear, then we will set our northwesterly course for the Faroe Island and our next port of call, Tórshavn. Weather for the night, it's going to be quite a fresh northeasterly wind, force 5 to 7, which of course will give us a bit of a moderate sea. So again, overnight you will hear a bit of a movement of the vessel. It will probably be in bed by then, so it will be same as you have experienced the last few nights. This time will be from the bow, so maybe just a slight pitching, but nothing major. Weather for tomorrow, well, again, they are giving me a cloudy sky with possible shower. Well, that was expected for today, but again, you have done an excellent job, so I will expect you do it again tomorrow. The temperature is going to be around 15 centigrade or 59 Fahrenheit. Well, that's it for me. The anchor is coming up now, and just waiting then to secure everything, complete the last of pre-departure checks, and wait for the pilot, and then set sail. Well, I hope you have a wonderful evening on board the Sea Princess, and talk to you back tomorrow when we're going to be leaving Tórshavn. Thank you.